Just on the back of what we were talking about, the business impact of this political unrest that we've seen here in the city. We keep hearing these from a lot of guests here, that it seems like the public doesn't completely understand the revisions behind this extradition bill. We have a viewer comment that I wanted to ask you here. Is the government overly arrogant in believing that some of these international groups, the business community, the lawyers out there have misunderstood it all?
Well, I do think so. In fact, we are at a loss as to why there is such a huge misconception about the purpose and the effect of the bill. First of all, we just discovered that a leading newspaper did a survey of the mass march on Sunday. And they discovered that 90% of the people who took part in the march thought that the bill would mean that people criticizing Beijing will be sent back to China to be tried. Now, that's a huge misconception, because what the bill does is like any other extradition arrangement all over the world. It deals with people committing serious crimes outside Hong Kong. Those serious crimes are well defined under the ordinance. It's not just about any crime, but serious crimes as defined, and crimes which do not involve any political element, doesn't involve political statement for sure, and it's purely enacted for the purpose of fighting cross-border crime. Now, the Hong Kong model, the Hong Kong law, in fact, was enacted by the British colonial government just before the handover in April 1997. It was modeled after the United Nations Model Treaty on Extradition. It is basically contained the same safeguards, same terms as the U.S. arrangement, the U.K. arrangement, Canadian arrangement, Australia and New Zealand arrangement. And, you know, we are at a loss that why it is that, you know, when U.K. and U.S. can have can consider, you know, application for extradition from China, and yet Hong Kong can't. And we being part of China, that we have no such arrangement with our own country, with whom we have, you know, the closest contact. Each day we have over 1 million people traveling across the border, and yet we have no legal tool to fight cross-border crime here. So we are at a great loss as to, you know, what is happening here. But having said
Ronny,
all that, a lot of people did turn out on Sunday, and a lot of people did turn out 2 days ago when the Legislative Council attempted to do the second reading of the bill. So
Ronny,
I do believe that SAR government is now seriously considering the entire situation and see whether there is a way out of this difficulty.
Ronny, the point I think is that people are concerned that if they are returned to China, they would not receive a fair trial. For instance, you have the 7-year rule there as well, part of this legislation, or part of this bill, I should say. That, I mean, who decides about this 7 years? I mean, it's a law which is a legal system which is opaque, and I'm being kind, Ronny.
No, it is a concession promised by the government in view of the opposition. In fact, you know, the more meaningful concession, which has been overlooked by the media, is that we would ensure to insist on the minimum fair trial guarantees provided under Article 14 of the ICCPR, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And you know, the gatekeeper basically is our own judiciary. We don't look to China or their judiciary to be the gatekeeper here. If we are not satisfied that the prisoner would receive fair trial or his human rights would be well respected, we simply would not accede to the application for extradition. Right. And you know, our judiciary is well famous for being independent, and you know, consists of very able judges with integrity. We have judges from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, sitting in our Court of Final Appeal, and I don't believe you can seriously suggest these judges can easily be bought by Beijing.
And Ronny, I would imagine not a lot of people are suggesting that as well. The core of the issue, and it's gone beyond the bill, was because the two issues are muddled. There's the extradition bill. There's also just the underlying concern of Beijing exerting its influence on Hong Kong. Do you not think that might necessitate the bill to actually incorporate countermeasures, checks and balances above and beyond what's already provided in law?
Sorry, what was the last bit? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just, no problem. I just wanted to see whether or not, because what you're saying is we should just trust the Hong Kong justice system to take care of the checks and balances. But given, of course, that this issue is beyond just Hong Kong, do you think it would appease the critics of this bill to put into place perhaps measures, additional checks and balances that go above and beyond what is already provided in Hong Kong law?
Well, I think we have exhausted all the protection that is advocated by the United Nations and set out in the Model Treaty on Extradition. But if people wanted more protection, I'm sure we can sit down and talk about it. But unfortunately, the opposition at the moment is not asking that. They're asking the government simply to shelve the bill. Now, I fully appreciate that people are being apprehensive about China and China's influence on Hong Kong. That is perfectly understandable. But this bill was not initiated by China. In fact, I think the Chinese ambassador to the UK made it clear that the initiative came from our own chief executive.
Ronny,
Sorry?
why is it needed in the first place? It's not as though there are loads of fugitives running around Hong Kong with impunity.
Well, they shouldn't be, and that's why we need.
But why is it needed in the first place?
Sorry?
Why is it needed?
Why is it needed? We only have extradition arrangement with 20 countries in the world. That means that we have no arrangement with over 100 countries in the world to deal with this matter of cross-border crime. You may ask, why did the UN pass a resolution in 1990 urging all member states that they must shape up their legal system to provide for extradition arrangements? Why is that?
So, Ronny, last question.
Because there is a social justice issue here, right?
Ronny, last question. Do you think Carrie Lam...
by all communities. Sorry?
Right. I was just going to ask you, do you think Carrie Lam should slow down the debate on this bill? Should she withdraw it for further consideration?
Well, I think it is certainly not... I think the government is certainly sitting back and looking at all the options to see how we can go forward. This government is, like any other responsible government, when faced with such huge opposition, must, of course, take stock of the present situation. But, we need time to think about it. We need time to come to any concluded decision, if it is possible at all, and we need time to talk to our various stakeholders. So that you will see that the legislature has, in fact, stopped meeting over the last 2 days. So we are taking stock and we are looking at all options.